One day, a long time ago, over 1,000 years ago, in a far-off village named Elleynja, there was a boy about 9 years old. And he liked to play outside in the fields outside the village, run by himself and play. And one day, he saw something very strange that he had never seen before. Off in the distance in the sky, it was big, and it was flying around, kind of like a bird or a bat or something, but it was big. And this thing saw that he could see it. And it was curious, and it flew down and landed next to him. He said, "What is your name?" And he said, "My name is Lorence." And he said to this creature, this dragon, "What is your name?" And the dragon said, "My name is Convenience." And then Convenience said to Lorence, "How is it that you can see me?" And Lorence said, "I don't know. I just do. Doesn't everybody see you?" And Convenience said, "No. For I cast a spell over people in Elleynja. I give them the ability to see what they wish was true. And in exchange, they cannot see me." And then the dragon sniffed at Lorence for a minute and then flew off. This puzzled Lorence. This did not seem like a good creature, like a dog or something. It seemed like it's probably an evil creature. So Lorence went home and he told his mother and his brother about it. And they just laughed and thought it was his imagination. He's out playing all the time. And he didn't know what to do since they didn't believe him. Maybe they were under the spell. So he went to the church and found a priest. And he told the priest what happened. And he asked the priest if there was anything in Scripture about people being under an evil spell and how to break it. And the priest thought for a minute. Now the priest thought, this little boy's probably just all caught up in his own imagination. But he's taking an interest with it in spiritual things, so I'll go along with him. And that was the priest's mind on it. Maybe the priest was under the spell too. So the priest opened the Bible in Isaiah, and he read what we would look at as Isaiah 28, right in the middle of the chapter.
Because you have said, "We have made a covenant with death, and with Sheol we are in agreement. When the overflowing scourge passes through, it will not come to us, for we have made lies our refuge, and under falsehood we have hidden ourselves. Therefore thus says the Lord God,
Behold, I lay in Zion a stone for a foundation, a tried stone, a precious cornerstone, a sure foundation. Whoever believes will not act hastily. Also, I will make justice the measuring line, and righteousness the plummet. The hail will sweep away the refuge of lies, and the waters will overflow the hiding place. Your covenant with death will be annulled, and your agreement with Sheol will not stand.
And so Lorence heard this, and it's where God is talking about a stone, obviously a great precious stone, and the rope of righteousness and a rope of justice. So Lorence left and went home. And in the little house that they lived in, close to the village of Elleynja, he had, over his 9 years, he had acquired 2 silver coins that he hid in a little crack where the wall meets the floor in the back of their house. And he took a knife and he dug those coins out from that crack. And then he left and he just started walking. He didn't know where he was going to go, but he knew somewhere out there he would have to find a rope of righteousness and a rope of justice and that great precious stone, whatever it was. And he walked night and day, and night and day again, and night and day again for 3 whole days, walking. And he came past a trading post, and he stopped in at this trading post. And the trading post was actually on the corner of a big farm. And he went in, he was just going to see about getting some water and maybe some bread or something to eat. And he walked in the back corner, high up on the shelf, there it was. And it was as big as a grown man's fist. And it was dark and deep red. And he knew in his soul, this was it. And the man came in behind him and said, "Can I help you?" And Lorence said, "What is that?" And the man said, "Oh, son, that is a garnet." And Lorence said, I have to buy that from you." See, Lorence was hungry and thirsty. He hadn't eaten for 3 days. But his own need for food and water did not surpass his dedication to his mission. He saw the garnet and he had to spend his money on it to get it, because that was more important than food and water. And the man said, "Oh, I doubt you could afford that." And Lorence held out his hand with the 2 silver coins and said, "Is this enough?" And the man said, "Oh, no, son, that's not nearly enough." And Lorence said, "Well, how much do you want for it?" Because he wasn't going to give up. And the man stood there and thought for a minute. This kid's probably pretty dedicated sounding here. He's very serious. He said, "I'll tell you what, son. You give me those 2 silver coins and I'll give you a pitcher of water and a loaf of bread, and you can sleep in my barn in the straw tonight. And then tomorrow you go to work for me. And if you work for me for 5 years on my farm, you will earn that garnet." So Lorence just quickly handed over the 2 silver coins, and the man handed him a pitcher of water and a loaf of bread. And Lorence went out to the barn and found the corner with all the straw in it and sat down in it. And he prayed, and he thanked God for the food, and he asked God to help him fulfill his mission. And he ate the bread and drank the water, and he went to sleep. The next morning he woke up, and he began his day. He fed the chickens. He fed the sheep and the goats. He fed the pigs. He fed the cows. He raked out all from the cow stalls. And then he went out in the field to chop hay. And he kept chopping hay till it was too dark to see. Then he came back to the barn and he sat in the corner and he ate his bread and he drank his water. And he had gathered some flax. So he started braiding the flax into rope. And he prayed and he asked God to help him on his mission. And he went to sleep. And he did this every day with no break, no day off, for 5 years. And then one day, he went to the trading post and he walked up. Now he is not about 9 years old. Now he was about 15. And because of all this hard work, he was pretty muscular. And he told the man, I have worked for you now for 5 years. And the man said, yes, you have. And I would wish that you would keep on working for me because you have done excellent work. Here is your garnet. And he handed the garnet to Lorence. And Lorence had 2 big ropes with him, one for justice, one for righteousness. And he took the garnet and he started walking back on the path back toward Elleynja, a 3 days journey. And he found a stick that it was a good stick for a club, but the end of it had 3 little branch pieces coming off at the same top place, like a crown, and they were all broken off, and he could set the garnet right between them and then use some of the rope to tie that in place. So now it was like a hammer. And he's carrying the hammer in one hand, the garnet hammer, and he's carrying the ropes in the other, and he's walking toward Elleynja on the path. And on the way, something strange happened. In front of him was another thing he had never seen before. Oh, he had seen similar things, but not this big. For what was before him was a wolf, but it was the size of a bull. And the wolf said, who are you? And Lorence said, my name is Lorence. And the wolf's eyes were strange. Lorence could feel the eyes peering into his soul. They could see inside of him and what he was made of. And the wolf said, we are emissaries from the Lord sent to help you on your mission. And then from the left, 3 wolves came down, and from the right, 3 wolves came down the hill, and they surrounded Lorence, and they all together went on the road until, after 3 days, arriving first into the fields, because Lorence had a mission, and he walked out in the fields looking for his adversary. Now, Convenience, the dragon, saw Lorence that one time, and he'd kind of forgotten about him because, after all, he had a happy life where nobody seen him and there was no threat. So, whatever that kid was, he's long gone. He's frolicking around, flying along. And then he looks over there, way over there, and he thinks, what? That looks familiar. But what really looked familiar was the fact that Lorence was looking straight at Convenience from a long ways away. Except this time, Lorence wasn't looking with a child's curiosity. Lorence was looking with a man's intent. It was time to do business. And Convenience, again being seen, which he is not used to, felt a little tremble inside, knowing he had no scales for protection. It was his invisibility that was his protection. So, terrified of Lorence, it turned to anger, and he started flying toward him. Fast, very fast. He's coming right in at him. And Lorence, who is a lover of truth, wasn't going to bend or flinch. Because in that passage, he that believes shall not flinch. And he loosened his ropes, and he was waiting surrounded by the great wolves. And Convenience lands in front of him and lashes out with his head, and Lorence jumps to the side. And then Convenience lashes at him again and breathes fire at him, and Lorence jumps the other way. And Lorence takes and he throws a lasso, and it hits right around the left front leg of the dragon. And 3 of the wolves grab that rope and run off to one direction. And then Lorence takes the other rope, Righteousness, and throws it and lassos the right front leg of the dragon. And the other 4 wolves grab the rope and run off in the other direction. So the dragon now is stretched between 2 sets of great wolves. But his long neck is still thrashing, trying to get to Lorence. And Lorence dives out of the way of it as he thrashes with his teeth and breathes fire at him. But when he had the moment, this one moment, he ran up with his garnet hammer and he hit the dragon in the head with the garnet, and the dragon's head immediately turned to dust and his body collapsed in a field. So Lorence now thinks the dragon's dead, so the curse is over. So he walks into town, and people came up to him and they sort of recognized him, and he'd been gone. And they were asking where he had been, and he said, "Follow me." And he went to his old house, and he got his mother and his brother. And he took his family and the village out to the field to show them what had cursed them for so long. And they got out to the field, and he said, here it is. And everybody started chuckling and started laughing. And his brother said, "Lorence, you may have been gone a long time, but you still got a little boy's imagination. There's nothing there." And Lorence began to realize it wasn't the dragon in the sky that put the curse on them. A curse so that they would see not the truth, but see what they wished to see, what was convenient in their heart. That was the real source of the curse. So Lorence left, and he went off, and over the next few years he made a little money, and he bought the trading post and the farm, and he married a beautiful girl with blonde hair named Kenna, and they had 7 children. And every now and then the Lord would speak to Lorence, and he would get on his horse and ride back to the field where he'd meet a stranger coming through who was mystified by these great bones and would ask, what kind of animal was this that died here in the middle of this field? Because this stranger who could see the bones was not somebody cursed by convenience. It was another soul that loved the truth. The end.